If you watch my videos because you want to learn to draw, then I think this video really is essential viewing by giving you an understanding of the purposes I have in what I'm doing so that you can align these more explicitly with your own purposes. So let me make clear what it is I'm trying to achieve in my videos, why I do it in this way, and how you can get the most from every video of mine that you watch. And at the very end, I'll make clear the thing that I think is the most valuable thing that you can get. What am I trying to do in my videos? Well, I'm trying to give an understanding of what the drawing process is about. Not the only way of understanding the drawing process, but the one which has made sense most to me, and I think more importantly, produce results in my drawing. And fundamental to this is the fact that the drawing process, I think of it as a creative translation of something, whether we see it in front of us, whether we see it in a photo, whether we see it in our imagination, that we want to put on a two-dimensional sheet of paper using whatever medium we want to use in whatever style we have or we choose. And I believe this is the truly creative part of the drawing process. It's also the truly individual part. There are so many choices that have to be made as part of this translation of something from one form to then have it on the paper in another form. And with all of these choices that we have to make, that we're forced to make, the way we structure these choices and the actual choices then that we make, in the end result in our drawing style. Because our drawing style really comes from what we put on the paper. What we put on the paper is the result of all of these creative decisions and choices. One of the biggest and most fundamental, and I think far-reaching mistakes that beginners make, is the mistaken belief that the challenge in drawing is somehow actually producing the lines, the marks on the paper. Now, there are skills in knowing how to do that and in actually having the manual dexterity, the eye-hand coordination, and the confidence to do it. But the real challenge, the real problem isn't putting the marks on the paper. It's working out from my reference, from something that's in another form to how my finished drawing will be. It's working out how will I translate this other thing into marks? What marks will I use? How will I draw them? How will I arrange them? This creative thinking is the true challenge in drawing. And yet most videos seem to concentrate on how to draw a straight line, how to crosshatch as if there's one way, and follow along and you'll be able to draw. None of these approaches are going to address the fundamental issue of how do I do this translating? How do I know what marks I'm trying to put where? It's why I believe that follow along step-by-step videos have very limited, if any, benefit in learning to draw. They're great if you want to have a nice drawing at the end of an activity, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But if your aim is to learn to be able to do your own drawings, your own original drawings, they don't equip you with any skill or understanding to be able to do that. When I teach in any of my videos, I'm always trying to explain the why. I'm always trying to explain the understanding, the big picture thought processing. And that's why I talk a lot, sometimes too much, according to some of the comments. Sometimes I talk, as in this case, face to camera. Other times I talk as a voiceover over an actual demonstration. But I'm always talking because I'm always trying to explain my reasoning, the decisions I'm confronting with, the choices I'm making, and why I'm making them. Because this gives insight into how I reason, into how I tackle the creative translation challenge that we all face when we go to create an original drawing ourselves. Because that's the skill I've had to learn, and that's the skill you need to learn. And I'm not saying that you do it exactly the same way I do it. But to my best ability, I try and give an example of how it may look and the sorts of drawings you get if you tackle the challenge in this way. Understanding what the drawing process is the big picture. Conceptually, it's the basis of everything, really, I believe. My understanding there equips me to make the choices, or at least to have a framework to use to work out what the choices are and which ones might be to my advantage for the sort of drawing I'm hoping to produce. Where to start, how to start, what sort of marks to use, how to combine them, what techniques to use, what things to do or not to do, how to organize what I'm doing, dealing with mistakes, the possible outcomes I have to choose from at certain stages of my drawing. How do I know when my drawing is finished? There are lots of decisions and choices. If we don't have an underlying, consistent framework of understanding the drawing process to use to navigate through all these choices, we can end up with a lot of random bits and pieces. And I think in the end, drawings that lack a consistency and a drawing style that doesn't seem to settle anywhere. It's my understanding of the process that also creates consistency in the development and application of my drawing skills, of the technical skills and the techniques that I use. Have you ever wondered why I can seem to find a photo, a reference, and draw it fairly quickly? It's because I have a thorough, a solid framework of understanding the process of what I'm doing to use as a platform to stand on, making all the choices that need to be made. And I've had a lot of experience now, after hundreds and hundreds of drawings, actually making those choices, seeing the results, fine-tuning those choices and working out the very best ones that will consistently help me produce the sort of drawing that I'm visualizing in my mind as part of this creative translation. And it doesn't always mean that I finish up with the drawing I envisaged. Often it means halfway through I'm now equipped to change some of the ways I'm doing things because I see opportunity to actually create a better effect than the one I was aiming at. But it's my framework of understanding that lets me do this with well-practiced, apparent-looking ease. But it does get easier because things that we do repeatedly do get easier to do. And so if I do it wisely and productively, then it will become easier to use this understanding well in my creative choices. So therefore, listen to the talking. Don't fall into the trap of thinking, I'll just watch the drawing videos because, well, they're more practical. That's where you really learn how to draw. Actually, no. That's where you see how drawing processes can look if you understand things the way I understand them. But if the way my drawings look is the way you would like your drawings to look in some way, then that's going to most effectively come through understanding what I'm talking about in the talking videos, because it's that understanding that produces these drawings. And in most of my talking videos, there'll be points that you've heard me mentioned in one context or another already. Repetition is a very important part of the learning process, but maybe presenting points I've already made that you've heard in ways that both introduce additional information, but more importantly, connecting these points with other points than the points they were connected with in a previous video. Because all of these issues interconnect in different ways. The drawing process, the decision making, isn't a linear line, will I do this, 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 this. There's 27 choices in a sphere and I'm navigating back and forth across with all these opportunities or challenges and connections, some of which open up other connections, some which will close off other connections, trying to make the best choices for the artwork I'm seeing in my mind. The other thing to understand is that I think about drawing process all the time. Every time I draw, I'm trying to bring to the front of my mind an understanding of what am I doing now, why am I doing it, or else I have that understanding and that's actually explicitly driving what I'm trying to do on the paper. It loops both ways for me, which means that over the last 2 or 3 years, my understanding has refined. The language I've used has changed somewhat. The things I emphasize perhaps have changed. So favor the newer talking videos, I suppose, is what I'm saying here if you use my channel for learning. Because the newer talking head videos are the ones that come from more experience in thinking and then putting that thinking into practice and judging the results than the earlier ones, because I've been learning too. So why not benefit from a better trained teacher in my later talking videos? And also, persevere till the end. You may feel like you know the point I'm talking about. I arrange the points, however, in the order which I think progresses most systematically for the overall point of the video. But the key point that's needed to bring everything together may be the second last point. The point that you've never heard me say, which is really going to be helpful for your own drawing process and experience, may be the final point I say. And I still have points that I've never said before, that I've never used before in any video, because my understanding of that point has really only just evolved to the point where I've been able to see and understand more clearly what it is and the part it plays in my drawing process. And, well, it's a real shame if that's the point that comes just after you think, oh, I've heard these before, and you turn the video off. So if you're faced with a 15, 20-minute talking video of mine, put it on in the background while you do some gardening, while you wash up the dishes. And when I start to say something where you're not thinking, oh yes, I've heard him say that before, you can tune in with greater intent. But of course, I also have videos where I demonstrate drawing. And in these, I'm trying to talk about what I'm doing and why, but show how it looks with a particular reference photo. It's so important that I include the reference drawing. I can see almost no benefit in a learning to draw video where you can't see the reference. How can you understand the choices being made for the translated version if you can't see what it's being translated from? It might look magical and impressive, it may be entertaining, but in my mind, it's teaching almost nothing about the drawing process, about learning how to be able to draw ourselves. The important point to realize, which actually links back to the talking head videos, is that when I'm doing a demo, I don't have time in that 15-minute slot where I'm trying to keep up in some way with talking about relevant things that I'm actually doing on the paper at that point. I don't have time to fully explain everything that I'm saying. What I'm really doing is I'm referring back in some way to all the points I make in my talking head videos. What I'm doing is I'm linking back to the reference material I've given you already so that you get to go, okay, that looks like this. This is one of the ways it can look, or this is one of the times where we use that with this subject in this way. But of course, if you haven't watched the talking videos, those broad conceptual ways of understanding the drawing process aren't there in your mind to link back to when I refer to them. And I have to assume that you're familiar with my drawing framework fairly comprehensively, because otherwise every video would be saying the same thing over and over again and would be 3 hours long. The other important thing I want to say with my drawing videos is watch the drawing, but listen to the voiceover. The value of watching me do the demo is to see my thought processes become translated into ink marks on the paper. The real value is always understanding the process, not just seeing what's happening. I do demo drawings not because I'm trying to impress you with my drawing or entertain you with my drawing, but I want you to see how the lessons look when they're applied to drawing. I want to use the drawings as a way of reinforcing the, if you like, theoretical, conceptual understanding of the drawing process that I'm consistently presenting. And hopefully it gives the theoretical framework some integrity, that this actually is a useful, worthwhile, effective way of guiding the choices I have to make when I learn to draw. This is why so often when I make a mistake when I draw, I highlight the fact that I've made a mistake and I show you if there's some way I can hide the mistake or make it look less obvious at least. Because this is one of the things I teach, that mistakes aren't as bad as we think, and we can usually in some way overcome them, hide them, make them not such a problem by the end. And so when I make a mistake, while I don't do it deliberately, it is a part of the normal drawing process for everyone. I use it to demonstrate the teaching that I make about mistakes. The whole point of the video, of the demo video where I draw, is to show you what can happen from these ways of thinking, of understanding, to reinforce the fact that drawing like this is a skill that we learn the way we learn other skills. And on this channel, there'll be a consistency of lessons that will equip you with what you need to know, to understand and to practice, to progress in developing this skill yourself. While we're talking about the drawing demo videos, can I say, don't try and draw along at the same time. Look, in the end, you can do whatever you want. I've designed the videos so that you don't just watch a drawing appear, but you hear the thinking processes. You then have a go drawing it yourself while the understanding of what's happening, why, is still in your mind, so that you can put that into practice. And therefore, we learn more, we learn faster, and we learn more deeply. If you're trying to draw along with me, then you're going to be so busy just watching where my pen is going that you're not going to have the energy to really listen, possibly at all, or very thoroughly to what I'm saying. But it is the most important part of the video. So what is the most valuable thing you can get from my channel? It's my broad framework for understanding the drawing process, from the very starting point to the final mark on the paper. This is what you can pay hundreds or thousands of dollars in courses and classes to get. Now, of course, in a course or a class, all this process, all this information is going to be systematized and presented in a certain order. But what I've tried to do in my videos is to bundle information in such a way that each video almost becomes a unit of a certain area of learning to draw. So if you watch enough of these videos and you choose them carefully, or you watch them all, I guess, there's no part of the drawing process of drawing freehand in ink, as I do for the subjects that I draw, where there isn't information about any part of the process somewhere in one of my videos. There's no part that I've held back for when you give me money. When I come to understand something a certain way, and I can see it in practice in a way that lets me be confident of its helpfulness, I add it to the framework that I present. And the other thing I want to make clear is that every point in every video almost has its own video. So if there's anything at all in any one of my videos where there's a number of points given and you think, oh, I'd like to hear more about that, it almost certainly has its own video. Now, with over 1,000 videos on my channel, it can be hard to find things. Please look at my playlists to help navigate. But can I particularly recommend the playlist that's titled something like Tips for the Self-Taught Artist? That's the one that pretty much contains all of the talking head videos for the last year and a half. And between the video title and what's on the thumbnail, there should be a fairly clear idea of the content of the video. So can I suggest maybe scrolling through the content of that playlist, checking those two sources of information, maybe reading the description, and making a list of videos that you haven't seen that tackle some of the issues that you think could helpfully progress your drawing development and learning. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Look, I hope this kind of overview of what I'm on about, what I'm trying to do, has been helpful in giving some focus and encouragement of how to get the best out of my videos. But look, in the end, whatever videos you watch, however you watch them, whatever you do or don't do when you watch them, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.